All right. Well, as many of you know, I'm Dr. Michelinaaichele, and I have a PhD in leadership. I'm a doctoral candidate for Christian ministry and leadership, but I also have a background in education and English literature. And so I have not on this channel done a lot of teaching of other books, right? I've done teaching of theories, I've done my own theories, I've done all kinds of things. But I have not yet taught a book. But I read through Atlas of the Heart by Dr. Brene Brown and realized it would be a disservice if I didn't teach it. Okay, so this is going to be one of the longer lecture series that we have on this channel because this is a full-on book being taught. And all I want to do today is overview all the glorious goodness that is in it. Okay. And so this is not my book, obviously. This is by Dr. Brene Brown. She is a social researcher. She is a social worker. She's a professor at University of Houston, maybe. I have to look at her bio. Yeah, University of Houston. She is one of the thought leaders and like seminal researchers on courage and vulnerability and like emotional depth of understanding. And so she does this really beautiful book um, about how to give language to your emotions. And if you guys know anything about me or my story, this was crucial for me back in 2018. So 7 years, 6 years now, when I was in therapy. And my therapist was like, Michelina, how are you today? And I was like, I'm fine. And she was like, I read about you in the news this morning. You're not fine. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I am fine. And she was like, here. And she gave me this list of faces. And in this list of faces was all these emotions and these faces. And I was like, oh, I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. I'm upset. I'm mortified. I'm every single negative thing you can be, I was, right? And so, and that'll happen, right? When you are in the process of being a social pariah and a outcast in society, right? So that was a process. And what Brene Brown does in this text, which you can get, it is a great coffee table book. Highly recommend it as a coffee table book because like you can kind of see there's just so many like illustrations in here that are really great. Um, and no, I'm not selling this, okay? This is just teachers teach books. That's what we do. Literary teachers teach books. And so that it's a great buy. It's a great coffee table purchase. But what she's doing here is intentionally giving you language around your emotions, right? She does talk about mapping meaningful connection, which is one of the last things she makes a point of, but the language of human experience is what she's looking at for a lot of this. And it's very, very relevant and very necessary and very important. And so I think it's such a great text. I think it is a beautiful piece of literature. It is backed, of course, by a lot of research. She's a researcher and she's a 5 times New York Times bestseller, number one bestselling author. So she's really pervasive right now. I quoted her in my dissertation because, she does like Daring to Lead and she does Unlocking Us. She does all these things. And so I'm a huge fan. She also is very real. She's very authentic. She talks about her own struggles, her own sobriety, like her own parenting, and I will always respect someone that does that. We are moving in a place now where authenticity is like one of the most valuable currencies because we're coming into AI and like you're distinguishing what's real from what's fake all the time with that. And so getting to know yourself is an important part of being able to speak authentically. And knowing your emotions and having language for those is so relevant to that. So we will do our first book teaching on this channel, and it will be Dr. Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. In my Empower Path community, they have been requesting me to teach more than just what I'm teaching there, which is the Bible and the Apocrypha, right? And so when you start teaching the Bible, you start getting into theology, right? I have a master's in theology as well. I've got a bachelor's in divinity. I have a bachelor's in ministry and leadership, business. I've got a lot of of my interests in degrees. But all that to say, um, you know, this is probably one of the first books I'm going to teach that is not theologically based. And it is nonfiction. It is professional development based. And as you well know, we do a lot of professional development on this channel, a lot of self and emotional awareness, because all of these things are critical to us understanding ourselves. And identity is the name of the game. Like, who are you? You know, the name of the authenticity game. Who are you? So let's get into the overview. Now, really, what I'm just going to overview here is her very cool table of contents. Okay. Her table of contents, and again, if you get the book, this will be easier for you, but her table of contents is what I'm just overviewing so that you know what this lecture series is going to be about. She does a really great job of like her actual book is really cool because every new section looks like this, like something like this. It's a really beautiful book, okay? But so I'm just giving you the table of contents so that you know all the different emotions she's going to highlight and that I'm going to teach on. And it is going to be a little bit of a longer lecture series, guys, so we'll just do it as we do. But um places we go when is the kind of way she frames out her entire text, right? Like the places, and by that she means the emotional places that we go when we're feeling some type of way. And the some type of way is when things are uncertain or too much, when we compare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just going to overview this, okay? It's a sort of very high level overview of the places we go, right? So the first bout of emotions that she's kind of grouped together, because there's a lot of emotions that she covers in this book, are when things are too much for us, when our circumstances, when our reality is too much and we can't handle it. Here's the emotional places we go to, right? We get stressed, we get overwhelmed, we get anxious, we get worried, we might avoid, we might be excited, we might be dreadful, we might have that root or that experience of fear, and we may go to being vulnerable, right? And so she outlines this. We're going to look at each of these kind of sections as we go. But when I think just even knowing this is so important because when you say, oh, I'm feeling anxious, you now have an understanding that, oh, things are uncertain or things are too heavy for me or things are too much right now. And you know, this way that she outlines this text, I think is so brilliant because it gives you, without even knowing anything really, without even delving into the individual emotions, which she will do and she does, and we will talk about, you get this categorical understanding. If I'm anxious, I'm uncertain about something. That alone can unlock some things in you that are really important, right? So we will look at all of these um, in due time over this lecture series. So when things are uncertain or too much, here are some of the places. Now, this is not, she says this, and I'm going to say it, a completely exhaustive list of every emotion anyone could ever have. It's not that. Okay. It's just a very good, I mean, it really covers a lot. And so we're not saying these are and by we, I mean she in her text and me in this lecture, are not saying this is all you'll ever, like these are the only ones. No, 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 of course not. But these are just a great kind of an overview. Okay. So this is by no means completely the list, but it's a good one. So first place we go when we're feeling uncertain or things are too much, we may be experiencing any of these emotions, right? When we compare, which again, everybody does to some degree, these are the emotional places that we go to. We go to comparison, we go to admiration, we go to reverence, we might feel envious, we might feel jealous. She does a really great job putting the distinction between those two, which we will talk about. We often may go to resentment. I think resentment is like a thing that a lot of us have in us. and we're resenting maybe someone for what they have and what we don't have. But I digress. And then these two really cool German terms, Schadenfreude and Freudenfreude, which she will talk about. But I will just say they are these really cool concepts of Schadenfreude is this idea where I want to define this specifically for you. Um, because she will define it out. It's really great. Schadenfreude means pleasure or joy derived from someone else's suffering or misfortune. And it's this compound idea that I'm deriving pleasure from your pain, right? It's a little sadistic in a lot of ways. And it's not, like I said, we're going to go into some really cool things here with what she does, but it involves the sort of sociopathic tendency, if I'm so honest with you, to have a counter empathy, right? To have this is not the acceptable reaction to your pain. Like if you see someone kicking a puppy, you shouldn't be like, oh, good, I'm glad that puppy deserved it. That's Schadenfreude, right? And so we're going to look at it. And then the opposite of that is Freudenfreude, right? Which is the opposite. It's the enjoyment of another's success, right? And it's part of like empathy. It's like, oh, I'm so happy for you, right? But these are all under this umbrella of comparison, which is really important for, I would say, pretty much everyone. And a lot of the times when we have comparison, we have a lot of insecurity. And so we're going to look at all this because I think it's so necessary for us to really unlock our own understanding. And it's such a research rich text that I think it would be a disservice not to teach it. I was reading it for myself and I was like, oh man, I think I have to teach this. I think I have to teach this, right? So, places we go when things don't go as planned, right? These are the emotions we get a lot of the time. Everybody should, well, like I said, we're doing a study on this for a reason, but everybody should study this one because we all have had things in our lives, which I think we've all, this is a human emotion. This whole book is a gamut of the emotions that come with being a human being. But when things don't go as planned, we've all had that experience where we had expectations that got let down, right? Or we were discouraged or we were disappointed, right? If it goes so much not as planned, we might be resigned or regretful or frustrated. And a lot of times the base level to that is boredom. She's going to talk about this, and I think I'll mention it here, where there's a depth to these emotions, right? It's like there's sadness and then there's grief, right? And it's a deeper level. There's happiness, there's joy. We're gonna go over all this too, so don't worry. But it's just there's gradients to all of these emotions as well. There's like a spectrum. I have somewhere, and I don't know where I put it. I will pull it up for this lecture series, but it's this wheel, and it kind of like goes from here. You could be scared or you could be terrified, right? It's a deeper, more pervasive, more acute feeling, some of these things. And so you can go from disappointment to discouragement, right? You can go from any of these probably to a deeper version of it. Right. So, and we do when things don't go as planned. This is why one of the better mindset shifts you can have is stop expecting things, right? Stop having expectations around how a thing is going to go or how somebody's going to show up for you, right? Because a lot of the times when you get good at tracking these emotions, when you're discouraged or when you're disappointed, it means you expected something from someone. And then it's like, well, was that realistic? And a lot of the times we break our own hearts because your expectations were in no way, shape, or form aligned with their patterns. Your expectations were around your own way you would show up. I see this all the time with people where they'll be like, well, I would never do that. And I'm like, that's fine. You're not the standard. It's irrelevant what you would do when you have something that didn't go as planned because it wasn't you that did it. It was someone else. Right. And so a lot of the times, right. So that is just something I see a lot. And we'll talk about all of these. This one I love because she covers not just negative, but also positive emotions. Um, Places, emotional places, feelings that we have when things are beyond our understanding. They're like beyond our ability to fathom. And awe and wonder are two of those that I think are so important in this life that we culture and we cultivate. Um, Surprise and interest, I think, are a really positive response to when you're not understanding something, right? That's what it is. When it's beyond you, you don't understand it. You can't fathom it. But one of the ones I think that a lot of us have is confusion and a lack of clarity, right? She talks about clarity or lack thereof as well, but we tend, and I know I am so guilty of this because I like to know. Like if there is fundamentals of everybody, one of my fundamental building blocks is I want to know. I want to understand. I want to learn all the time. And so I said, if I liked money as much as I like books and learning and growth, I would be a billionaire. I would be a legitimate billionaire. Like I love understanding what I don't understand. And so often, what makes me pretty decent at my job of being a coach and a minister and all these things and a teacher is that I want to understand it better. I'm not judging it. I don't particularly care why you did it, as far as like what you did or how you felt about it. I care why you did it, as far as like why was that your decision? What were you feeling to make that happen, right? Like, why was that the outcome? I care about the patterns. I care about the underlying mechanisms in a person, also in life. I'm always trying to learn. So, what I have learned about my own self is that when I don't understand, I have to be careful that I don't move into like frustration or move into grasping at control. Like, there's a sort of axiom, a law for myself that I have adopted, which is like, there are some things you're not going to understand, right? There's some things you're just not going to understand, and that's okay. And it doesn't matter if you try harder, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just, you're not going to understand that, right? So, but we go to these places when things are beyond us, and I would love to see us do more of the surprise and interest and awe than when we kind of move to the negative, like, what's wrong with me? I don't understand this, right? There's nothing wrong with you. Get curious, get cultivating, right? Well, she'll talk about curious in another place too. We'll talk about that. Um, Places we go when things aren't what they seem. I would say a lot of things are not what they seem. And I feel like we are in these things way more than we realize. Cognitive dissonance, specifically, is one that we go to a lot. There's so much cognitive dissonance out there. Cognitive dissonance being this is what I believe and this is the reality, and there's a gap, and I don't know how to make these things talk to each other. And we see a lot of people who have a cognitive dissonance about things. But there's a lot of places that we go when things are not quite as they seem. We can be amused by it, right? If you magician, I think Oz the Mentalist, right? He's so interesting. We're amused by his abilities if you know him. He can like seemingly mind read, but he's not mind reading. He's just knows the cues and the patterns so well that he can figure out, well, quite frankly, I have no idea how he does what he does, but it's very amusing, right? Things are not what they seem. Um, we can confront it with irony or sarcasm. That happens a lot when we are like, yeah, sure, right? I actually, one of the things I teach and coach is when you're getting true to your language, say what you mean what you say, do what you say, stop using sarcasm because it presents one thing as true that's not true because things are not what they seem, right? Sarcasm is a lie, it's a deceit, it's a dishonesty. And I had to work on that greatly when I was doing all this work. And now I'm not sarcastic anymore because it's a lie. It's presenting something that isn't real. Other places we go, we nostalgia, right? A lot of us have some nostalgia about how things used to be. And it's like, things are never what they used to seem. Quite frankly, you're probably making it up in your mind. There's a really great How I Met Your Mother episode that talks about that. It's like beer goggles, but for your past, you know. Um, Bittersweetness is a really beautiful emotion that we're going to talk about because it is something, it's having the capacity to hold two things at the same time that are seemingly contradictory, right? Like it's the ending of, I don't know, your high school career. It's a bittersweet thing because you're like, wow, I'm excited to be into college or into my next step in my life, but also this season's over, and that's a sadness, right? It's bittersweet. Um, and that bittersweet emotion is, I think, one that we all experience. We just might not have the language for it, but endings are often very, very bittersweet. And you sometimes don't know what to do with that. You're like excited for the next thing, but you're sad about the last thing. And there's a lot of things where one thing has to die to the other to become life, you know? Your singlehood has to die so that you can be married. Your bachelorette life has to die before you can be a mother, right? Like you're losing to gain. And that is a bittersweet thing a lot of the times, right? And so places, this one, everybody needs this, okay? Everybody needs this. The whole world is hurting. The whole world is brokenhearted, quite frankly. Places we go when we're hurting, anguish is a lot of, I don't know if everybody has experienced anguish. I hope you never do if you haven't. But anguish is one of those things where it's like you have sadness, like there's a gradient here, right? There's sadness, and then there's grief, and then there's anguish, and then there's despair, and then there's hopelessness. Like it's like it filters down. Now, if you have never felt these, I'm so happy for you. But more than likely, I'm sure you felt at least one or two. And when we go into it, you'll see how they have come into your life if you've had them. But I will just tell you, as someone who's experienced all of these things, oh God, I don't wish it on my worst enemy. I don't have a worst enemy. I don't hate anybody in this life, but I'll tell you what, I anguish and hopelessness and despair, I do not wish on anybody. They're very painful. Even the word anguish, it's like a distortion of your soul and spirit. You're just like crying out. Um, you've lost a part of yourself, right? It's just anguish is tough. And so we will talk about that, but there's gradients to the hurt, right? Um, and there's different reasons for why we hurt a lot of the times. It often has to do with a loss. Sometimes it has to do with something we don't understand. Sometimes it has to do with a betrayal. There's certain things, but when we're hurting, these are the places that we tend to go. Places we go with others is like how we respond to intersocial reaction, like interpersonal relationships. And this was a really interesting study. I'm excited to get to it because I think it's so clarifying. But we don't do a great job of holding others' emotions. We don't do a great job holding our own emotions, quite frankly. And so we often don't know how to respond to others. And there's this really great comic that she does here that has to do with how we respond to others. Um, and she plays out this whole sort of narrative, which is so clever. And it has to do with all the language that we use for others. Um, there's these, she calls them empathy misses, and it's all these kind of like ways we respond when someone comes to us with a problem. And so we obviously have empathy, and that's sort of the hope. Like you want to respond in empathy or in compassion. But more often than not, we respond with pity and sympathy, and like we're comparing our suffering, like, oh, well, what you went through is nothing compared to what I went through. Right. And we're like missing all the time. And there's so many different ways that we miss. where we have sympathy instead of empathy, which is like, I feel sorry for you. We have judgment, oh, you should be ashamed. We have disappointment, you've really let me down. We kind of remove the uncomfortable feeling that we have from someone telling us to like, hey, we should blame someone else. So there's this like this shifting that happens. Um, these are some of the ways that we will respond when others come to us and we don't know how to hold their stuff. We might minimize it or avoid it. I know a lot of time that is what happens with like avoidant types. They will minimize and avoid. You know, it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Oh, it couldn't have been that bad. Oh, but um, there's so much it could have been so much worse, right? It's a minimizing thing that they do, and people think they're being helpful, and like it's really just disregarding how other people are feeling, right? So places we go with others um is really an important understanding, and it is a I'd say a direct reflection to how we process emotions in and for ourselves. So, places we go with others, super important. This one is so necessary. I need everybody to like listen up for this one. This one, your whole identity can be framed out of this. Okay. Places we go when we fall short, this can impact your whole worldview. Okay. This can impact your whole identity, like your whole frame, your whole lens, your whole perspective. When you have a shame-based identity, a guilt-based identity, you're never good enough. You're going to people please. You're going to have perfectionism. You're going to have all these places, these things that show up. And so shame and guilt and embarrassment and humiliation are some of the most painful, along with rejection, which we'll get to. But some of the most painful emotions, and we internalize them because we're embarrassed by them or we're shamed by them, and then we get these strongholds in our life and we function out of them. Right? So much of my own work in identity and leadership has to do with the shame-based, guilt-based, fear-based identities. Right? And we don't want to have that, and yet so many people do. It's a real reason why we can't put off the old and come into the new life is because we have these identity frames, right? So it's so important that we root it out, we understand it. So this is really integral to my own work, but also life. This is so important. And the way you want to respond is with self-compassion, and we need to train ourselves in that. And there's some really good resources that she gives for someone else who is she's I think her name is Dr. Neff, and she does a lot with self-compassion. So it's really important work here. But I will just tell you the shame, humiliation, embarrassment lens I functioned out of for so long, and everything I did was never enough, and everything I did was so shameful, and I just showed up as myself, and people just didn't like me, and I was so ashamed of being me for such a long time. And then when the whole world was kind of calling me like a villain, telling me I should kill myself, all of these things, I was kind of like, am I really that bad? Like, am I really that bad? Like, let me think about this. And I had to get the true identity of like, no, I'm not actually what all these people are saying. This is kind of crazy. But even that took time to uproot, took a lot of personal development, spiritual development, uh, analysis, emotional awareness. I mean, you name it. I have done a lot of work around it. And so the shame-based identity takes some time to really get out of your system. Places we go when we search for connection, we're always searching for connection. Okay. We are interconnected. Do not let anybody fool you. I've said this before on this channel. I will say it again. Do not let anybody fool you by being independent. You are not. Okay. You are not independent. You are interdependent. You are inextricably linked to other brethren. Okay. You are linked. You just are. So when we are looking for connection, we want to belong. We want to fit in. We want to be connected to people deeply, seen and heard and understood. And when that doesn't happen, what ends up kind of coming out as a byproduct is loneliness, disconnect, feeling invisible, perhaps, insecurity in self. The self is a very insecure, fragile self because we feel like not good enough. We feel very brittle, like we're easily broken. Uh, Connection helps resilience build, and disconnect helps us to stay in a lot of really armored up places, right? Defensive places. And I will say too that searching for connection, the Gottmans do a lot with. They are the kind of like sort of quintessential marriage counseling two types. They're married, the Gottmans, and they talk about these bids for connection. And bids for connections are even now so simple as like sending somebody a meme. Hey, look at this thing. I thought of you. Like we connect. Right. So when we're talking about connection, it's a really interesting conversation and it is very necessary for everybody. We're all looking for connection. We all want to be seen and heard and seen as valuable, right? Places we go when the heart is open is so hard because we have a heart problem. We all need heart transplants, quite frankly, because when the heart is open, love can be let in, but also so too can heartbreak and hurt and defensiveness and betrayal. And so our hearts are like these little clams. They're very, very sensitive. And so what ends up happening when we have these little sensitive hearts is that the tiniest little grain of sand can get in there and irritate. So yeah, we love love and we want love, but to really experience deep love, you have to kind of have a very open heart. Love the world, love the brethren, love yourself. And that takes a lot of vulnerability. It takes a lot of courage. Um, and most of us are walking around brokenhearted. I was brokenhearted for years. I mean, my first 30 years on this earth, I was brokenhearted. And I was a brokenhearted Christian at that. And so that gives you a very wounded space. You don't witness well for the Lord when you are wounded like that. So, we go to so many of our issues, our lack of trust, our defensiveness, our armored up walls, our hearts of stone, our just so many things come out of a heart that was once open that learned it wasn't safe and it got broken over and over again. Because she'll talk about this and we'll talk about this, but heartbreak can only happen when you've loved something. Otherwise, you don't care, right? If I don't care about this thing and it goes away, I don't care about this thing still. If I cared about this thing and it goes away, now I'm hurt. Now I'm heartbroken. Now I'm sad. Now I'm feeling lovelessness, right? So you can only experience heartbreak when you've had a heart that has opened to something that broke it, right? So we're going to look at that. And I think, again, there are some that I feel are very necessary for my work on this channel, which is to talk about like identity work and self-awareness. And this is one of them. The heart work is super important. The shame work is super important. These are just, there's certain places that are more like, hey, this is important to the work that I do on this channel. This is, I think, where everybody wants to live, and we don't do a great job of it, right? Where places we go, emotional places we go when life is good. And I'll tell you what, this was so necessary for me. As I was reading through this text, I realized my definitions were a little off. And I was like, I can never experience joy. I'm never joyful. I'm never joyful. And I was like, once I read the definition I was reading through, I was like, no, yes, I can. Wait a minute. I had a whole false paradigm of myself because of how I was defining this thing. And so I really, that's the other thing I really love about this work is it gives you more standardized research-backed definitions for what each one of these things is. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. I actually do this. I'm not doing this. And so you just It's like going for a tune-up with your car. You thought you needed an oil change. Actually, no, your timing belt was off. And you're like, oh, this is not an oil problem. It's a timing problem. It's a whole different part. And so that this book has had really done that for me with the life is good category, right? I was like, oh, I basically live in contentment. Like contentment is where I live. But I realized more about happiness and joy. Um, and about tranquility, which I thought was really cool. So these places that we go when life is good, relief, life, and gratitude, um, those are, I think, things that we will experience the more we are working to be grateful and like trusting. But we do also, I really love that she brings this up, experience what's called foreboding joy, which is this idea of like things are good. When are they going to get bad? When's the other shoe going to drop? Like it's fine for now, but then what? Right? It's this like apprehension around enjoying the moment. Right? So these are just it's so good. This is so good. And like I said, this is just the overview. This is just the table of contents. And so we will delve into each one more deeply because she does a great job. It's very rich. And we will just take it kind of slowly. But the I think it's so important to even just have these categories. So, last two here, places we go when we feel wronged. This one was super interesting to me because there's like a component of justice or lack thereof. And I never really thought about it like that. But as someone who's been dehumanized and hated against and people get disgusted because of my legal circumstances. Um, I didn't realize I didn't realize how systemic this was. And people feel wronged all the time. People are so quick to offense. Like they're so self-righteous. And so this one will really help you understand the state of the brethren. It will help you understand the state of the world right now because everybody is self-righteous. Well, I'm overgeneralizing. So many people are self-righteous, right? Well, I wouldn't do it that way. Well, that's not my way. Well, oh, and now they feel wronged. And that's why so many people are angry and like in contempt. So many people feel wronged about the fact that Donald Trump is the president. They're in disgust and hate. Never seen anything like Trump derangement syndrome. And it's because people feel like they were wronged. Not my president, no kings. And it's like that's the democratic system. Like I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like I saw something the other day and it was like I didn't vote for Obama, but I'm not wanting you guys to kill yourselves for doing so. Like it's gotten really crazy. And why? Because people feel wronged. They feel like inherently morally betrayed. And so these are the places that people will go when they do feel wronged. And and it's a really interesting kind of projection. And as somebody who has been the victim of dehumanizing, and I guess I don't like to say the word victim, but like I have experienced what it is to be dehumanized because of a label and a category that I'm put into, and dehumanization being less than human. I can tell you what she talks about here, which is that it's so dangerous, is correct. It's a really dangerous thing to see somebody as less than human. All of human atrocities come out of that. So this is a really interesting intellectual pursuit as well as an emotional understanding. This one's great. And then finally, places we go when we self-assess, right? In pride and hubris and humility. This one was also super interesting because what we often call pride is really hubris, according to the research. And so this was a really cool study. That should be it. Yeah. So these things are so helpful to just know. And I'm excited to teach this book. Like I said, it's kind of a massive endeavor. It's like kind of a massive undertaking because this book is not small. And also, these concepts are not always the lightest, like they are a little bit heavy, but I just think it's so important for us to really understand. And like I said, you don't need me to lead you through this. You can go pick this book up yourself and read through it. But I will say some of the language, maybe is a little bit academic or technical in a way that it might help to have some clarity or some overview. In which case, here for that, of course. But it is a great book, and the whole point of it is really to help you navigate your own emotional system. That's why she calls it Atlas of the Heart, right? Atlas, like a map, heart, your own emotional system. It's a really cool little like heart on the front of the cover. It's a very great book. It's really a beautiful book. Like, and it's a heavy book too. Like I said, great coffee table book. But but yes, so if you are, and I talk about this with my own like network of people, but I'm like, if you are a therapist, if you are a psychologist, if you are a, psychotherapist, if you are a life coach, if you are anybody in like mental well-being, personal development, emotional awareness, EQ, I think that leadership, oh, for sure, of course, leadership. This book is like almost a must read, quite frankly. So that's why we're going to teach it. And I do think that there will be some more texts that get taught on this channel in like lecture series as we do, because the people have been clamoring for it. And anything the people clamor for, right? Anything the people ask me for, I want to oblige and give them. So yeah, I hope that you will potentially like this series. I hope it's enlightening for you. And I will see you on the next video and we'll go from there. Other than that, if you don't like this lecture series, that's okay. I will see you on the next lecture series. I've got like 200 plus videos on this channel. So if you don't like this, that's cool. But I hope that you are super interested in this and ready to hear more about it. And then I will see you on the next video if you want to take part in this lecture series.